always distill the water if you use an neti pot.
Yeah.
Because if you pump tap water, depending on where you live, through your nostrils near your brain, you can get an infection.
My tap water is actually pretty good. We did a blind taste test the other day. Fooled that guy.
Yeah.
Idiot. Good thing he doesn't listen to this.
All right. So, what's the most excited you guys have ever been for a product? It doesn't have to be a game, but I feel like we all have our heads on pretty straight when it comes to like expectations.
The
for
Pokedex.
things.
No, the number 2 pencil.
Wait, I think I had that same
Yeah.
Pokedex.
I was real excited for it, and then I got it. It was trash.
You were also
That little
8.
red thing with the pixelated.
Yeah.
Dude, that thing was awesome. Are you kidding me?
I don't remember the first issue of that being good.
It was probably never good. I'm just saying. It was so
You hit
awesome.
a button, and it was like, that's a Pikachu.
I think-
and I was like, I'm not even looking at a
I
Pikachu,
think,
you dumb piece of shit.
I think the first Pokemon movie was way more disappointing than that thing.
First Pokemon movie is the best movie
It's not.
ever.
All right, so I would say we for the most part have a pretty good understanding of business and like the customer relationship surrounding it. But
Yeah.
hey, I'm sure we've all felt tricked at some point before as well.
Yeah,
Right? When Pokedexes are.
One of our friends who listened to the show tricked me into buying the video game Brink many years ago. And he was a manager at GameStop.
That game is not good.
Yeah. I wish I could buy $60 worth of some sort of flesh-eating animal and give it to him.
I guess mine would. Well, I guess mine is a game-related thing. Mine would probably be the Wii. Have you ever saw those old trailers for the Wii where the people are like diving around their living room being like, woo, I'm playing Red Steel or whatever, and then you play it and you're like, it's all like
See?
freaking out.
And now you learn your lesson. Now you understand that technology will never work like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Technology will never be that fun.
I mean, you're not allowed to do the Penny Arcane, I think, coined the term like bullshot, right? Like the CG game commercials, like the old Call of Duty ones where it would be, yeah, you're not allowed to do that
Which is
anymore.
going to come up
Is
a
it?
little bit later.
Oh, wait, like actually have fake gameplay?
Yes,
Like,
that's
shit?
meant to look like real gameplay. Killzone 2.
sneaky.
Yeah. They're like, hey, the PS3 is capable of this. And you're like, is it?
I remember that Killzone 2 thing. That was
It's a phenomenal trailer.
It
Not
is
at all
phenomenal.
reflective of
No.
what that game is.
that game series is trash.
Killzone's
So is the
okay.
PlayStation and all human beings.
Whoa.
Sorry, we're just
Yeah,
accelerating.
PC for life.
All right, so what's up, everybody? This is Hot Button, and today we're going to talk about everybody's most anticipated game of 2013, 2014, and 2015, as well as everybody's most hated game of 2016, followed up by everybody's most rescued game of 2017. All of these, by the way, being the same action-adventure space exploration survival game, No Man's
Star
Sky.
Citizen.
We'll do an episode on that.
No,
right?
that's going to be the most anticipated game up until 2025. And then the riots are going to burn America down.
You know, it's about time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I talked over you.
No,
just
you're
say
fine.
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. An ambitious indie title catapulted into the AAA blockbuster spot after grabbing the attention of one of the three major game giants, along with millions of players, both casual and not, with the nearly impossible promise of giving a massive open-ended universe made up of over 18 quintillion procedurally generated planets for them to explore and name all for themselves. Some of us soon learned during development that that game may not actually be what it seemed, while others found this out the hard way. I am Randall Beatrice, and I'm here with Chris Anatuano.
What up?
And returning host Austin Blakesley.
Ugh.
So, Austin, why don't you tell us the story of Hello Games' No Man's Sky?
All right. Well, in order to tell the story of No Man's Sky, we got to start with Hello Games.
Good name for a company.
Yes.
Yeah, I like
Hello
that.
Games.
By the way, these guys, the two guys that founded No Man's Sky, one of them you probably don't know, and one of them you probably do.
Is one of them the face of like?
One of them,
a lot
Sean
the interviews?
Murray.
Okay.
The guy, he is just the sweetest, happiest guy ever.
That makes it so
And
much more
we are going
tragic.
to chronicle the destruction of his psyche today.
One of my favorite things I saw is somebody made like his face out of something in No Man's Sky. Or
like an
Minecraft.
entire species. Of,
Yeah.
All right,
that's
so
funny.
Hello Games was founded in 2008 by Sean Murray and Grant Duncan.
You said it's an English company.
Yes, they were founded in Guildford, England.
Okay.
And their first game was released in 2010. I don't know if you guys have played it. It's a game called Joe Danger.
I do remember this game.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like Trials, but not as good.
It's like Trials,
okay.
but
Yeah.
it's a cartoony game where you play like a movie
It's a movie stunt
stuntman.
character. Yeah. The style
And,
didn't really
like,
grab
I
me.
like the nameless ragdoll star of.
They did a sequel as
Trials.
well. I think Joe Danger 2, the movie,
Yes.
which was also a game, but
And then Joe Danger Infinity, which was
I don't even remember. When did that come out?
was an auto-running game for iOS
Did
that
they
came
make
out
it?
during No Man's Sky's development.
Oh, that's what they were doing during
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, that game came out in 2010. Sequel came out in, I want to say 2012.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the sequel came out like right before No Man's Sky was revealed.
Yeah.
So we're going to fast forward to what was then referred to as the VGX Awards.
Right. I can't believe how far back this story goes.
Yeah, that was the year that they tried to get rid of the audience, and they had like.
Is it still on TV?
It was on Twitch.
Okay.
And it was the year that GTA came out, so they had like Waves and Tyler the Creator presenting.
Right, that was so funny.
And Joel
they
McHale
were like
hosted it.
super baked on
Yeah.
there. So it was just
It was
like
just like-
Waves and Tyler the Creator being like, I don't know, I didn't even play this game.
Yeah.
It seems pretty cool.
But at one point, Jeff Keighley just gets on camera and says, "We have a new
God
game to
bless
show
that man.
everybody." And then Sean Murray walks out and introduces himself. And then he shows a trailer, and in the trailer, it starts with the phrases.
I watched this.
Yeah, it starts with like the phrase every something procedural. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it goes through it's like every rock procedural, every plant procedural, and then it like does like a little ticker thing where it
Right.
flashes and it
It keeps
says
getting bigger
every
and
planet
bigger.
procedural, every planet unique, every planet unexplored, and then it cuts to them underwater with a bunch of fish floating around, which
Yeah.
we will learn was not in the game when it came out. And
He's
then
like, we all like Spore.
and then they surface, and 5 ships fly overhead, which was also not in the game when it came out.
No, it wasn't.
And then he gets in a spaceship and he flies out to space and he meets 3 other people who are also flying into the same space. And then a giant space battle happens around this big freighter. And then the freighter jumps out of the system, and then they all follow him. And it was like
there
was just,
was emphasis around that space combat.
Yeah.
It looked like a Star Fox.
and then there
kind of
was,
thing.
there was like he goes down to another planet and there's a giant snake that comes out of the ground, and it's like all this stuff in a game that he would later go on to say that they would never do a trailer like that because it was disingenuous to the procedurally generated nature, because you can't guarantee every player
Of
will
course.
experience stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this first trailer had like giant animals running out of things, and it was all very tailored to show off
Very
like the
direct,
best
but
that could be
Did
there.
look enticing.
But-
yeah.
Of course.
Obviously, people took the wrong things from this trailer.
Took it very literally.
Yes, they saw these tiny little ships all flying around like a crashed freighter, and they thought, "Oh, those are all players." Turns out those are the little sentinel things that come down. And,
Yeah.
It's like the wanted level thing.
yeah, exactly. And they saw the
Space
other
cops.
spaceships involved in the space battle, and they thought, "Oh, this is like an MMO, but like combined with Minecraft in space."
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's just a survival game where you can leave the planet, go to another planet. But yeah, the fan response was
Pretty big.
better than Hello Games could have possibly anticipated. They went from being a company that made this little cartoony mascot motorcycle game to having one of the most anticipated games possibly in history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I would. We were talking yesterday about what games have we seen had that type of kind of anticipation since, and it's hard to pinpoint one.
I don't
People
even
a little
think,
more
I don't think,
controlled
even
in their
think
enthusiasm.
anticipation was that high for things like GTA
G-
5
yeah,
or
yeah.
Red
Yeah.
Dead or
Yeah,
even the biggest games in the world.
because this kind of transcended even beyond games.
Yeah. This was a thing where newspapers were writing about No Man's Sky, and
Yeah.
people were buying consoles to play No Man's
Because
Sky.
game phenomenons, it's usually after they launch. Things like Fortnite and Pokemon Go, those are like, people weren't anticipating them. They just blew up.
yeah,
when,
exactly.
yeah.
So No Man's Sky
Some people maybe.
decided that they, in order to meet said demand, they would need some help from a publisher. They couldn't self-publish this game like they did with Joe Danger because they needed somebody to handle all of
like
this.
Real
later,
money.
kind of, not to spoil anything, but didn't they later end up self-publishing themselves?
On PC, yes.
On PC.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Alright,
they
that
made-
explains a lot. Okay.
So they made a deal with Sony. Sony
Yeah.
responded. Sony said, "We want to provide you development funding for this game. We want to make this thing bigger and better than it's ever going to be." And Hello Games basically said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, pump the brakes."
Yeah.
we have enough money to make this game, and we don't want to pump a bunch of money in it and to make it into this Goliath that we'll never be able to control.
This is sad.
We just want help with the funding for promotion, marketing, and publication.
Yeah.
So they wanted help printing the actual discs
Yeah.
making trailers.
Because I know that
like
physical
Post
version was
logistics
very...
shit.
Yeah, because they weren't looking into any early access or anything. But, I mean, was Sony searching for exclusivity deals at this stage, too, as well? Okay.
I think they saw...
Less like a Street Fighter 5
They were
situation,
already
more
going to
like
put out a masterpiece of a game, so
Right.
they didn't have...
they saw the fan response to
capitalize on
No
that.
Man's Sky, and they were like,
Yeah.
well, if we can get this, then we don't have to do a lot of work, and we'll have like an exclusive that people will have
And
to
new
buy the
consoles
PlayStation
just
4.
came out at this point.
That was...
We're going to make No
that
Man's
was
Sky's
literally-
dildos. No
Yes.
Man's Sky flamethrowers.
It was a month after the PS4, right?
Yeah, it was. I think it was less than a month. It was like 2 weeks.
Jeez, yeah. That's the stage that you do that in.
Yeah, Sony kind of came in and decided to take over marketing for the game.
Boy, did
and-
they ever.
Yes. And part of this promotion, the first anybody noticed of this partnership was E3 2014, which is about 6 months after No Man's Sky was announced. No Man's Sky was shown off on the main stage of Sony's E3 press conference.
I remember this appearance very
Yes.
well. Yeah.
That was the one where the whole joke was born of zooming out and seeing a star system and then zooming out and seeing a universe and then zooming out and having like every one of these dots is a planet you can go to and name and all that stuff. And these guys, turns out that Hello Games might have been in the wrong business. I think they should have gotten into marketing. Because they were very good at selling stuff. And they're very good at making games, don't get me wrong.
No, they were good stage shows for sure,
but they
too.
were they were very good. Like they had something.
There was a philosophy.
Yes,
with
because
this
that
game.
Sean Murray guy, sweet as he is not the best presenter in the world. He was very shy and very awkward on stage.
That made it almost more endearing, though.
It did,
He was
but-
less like a Peter Molyneux like figure and more like the guy that revealed Yarny from Unravel.
You could tell he was very excited about his own product too.
He believed.
Yeah. This is when the fan response to No Man's Sky kicked it into overdrive. There's a website called The Wrap, and a writer named Phil Owen for The Wrap blamed a lot of the issues on the marketing from No Man's Sky and said that this game transferred the field of video game marketing to be less about selling the game and more about creating cult-like fandom and even weaponizing that fandom.
That's a good
but
quote.
you feel like that's not like the first time that could have happened.
No, not
happened,
at all,
though, you know what I
but,
mean?
yeah.
Like we're talking about a media, a media tactic that's been used for like 80 years prior to this.
And this
you know?
is Sony.
Yeah.
But like it was so easy for them. Like, so this is going to be a story about everybody on every side fucking up. Like we're not going to talk about how much Hello Games fucked up. We're not going to talk about
The
how much
fans,
Sony fucked up. We're not going to talk about how much the fans fucked up. We're going to talk about how they all contributed.
It was a collaborative effort.
Yes, they collaborated together in making this thing so disappointing. And
It definitely set a precedent for like game announcements to follow.
you know, the fans, they became very like cult-like is a very good word to describe it. Like I don't have any exact examples here, but I did go back in my research and look at this. You can go on
Like
Reddit and organize it by date. And I
Remember
went back
Twitter
and
in this
reversed
time.
it and looked at the first couple posts from No Man's Sky's reveal.
Oh, that's gotta be
right when
really
they
interesting.
made the Reddit.
Yeah.
And people were like,
Pulling their
this is
hair out.
partially the fault of the people that made that first trailer, but it's also like video game fans are weird because they don't understand how something like what they wanted No Man's Sky to be is not a reality.
Right.
Yeah.
And they put hope in this little company that's like 5 people to make this vast world that like
Exactly. Yeah, I hate to bring it up again, but like same like with Star Citizen, like they're trying to actually make something like that. And if you just take any sort of glance at it, you can see like just the immense.
Oh, the cracks.
And like how would you ever make anything like that? You know?
Yeah, it's totally unrealistic. Yeah. They kept
just-
pushing.
they could have come out and said, "Whoa, pump the brakes. Like we're making this game. We're glad you're all excited for it, but we just want to be real with you. This is not what you want." Instead, they leaned
That's
into
so
it.
hard. They did,
so
but it's like,
hard.
how do you tell fans to not be excited for your
I
product?
know.
I know.
It's tough.
It
It's
is.
free marketing. Like,
is,
I don't blame them, but Sony really leaned into it. Like
They did.
There was a tech festival by The New Yorker, one of the most pretentious magazines, called Tech at Fest,
with an
awful name.
with the ampersand, right?
No, not
Or
ampersand.
not
the
ampersand.
A with the circle, whatever the at symbol, I guess.
Yeah.
And then later, in October 2nd of 2015, jumping a little bit ahead in the timeline, the game was shown off on Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
And I don't know if you ever watched this video.
No, what the fuck? I didn't
Sean Murray was on Stephen Colbert.
If I may interject a little bit, that pitch on like it is the craziest thing. Like you should go back and watch it because it's like not only is it nuts that was like on television, but like it was also the source that was used like in reference the most when that outrage later came out down the road, because like the quotes about the interactivity and multiplayer were sort of like born from this interview. And like the question was always out there beforehand about that topic, but here was where you saw a developer come out and say in an official back and forth, like broadcasted, yes, you can find each other in the open universe and affect each other's worlds. And like but he was like, the odds of doing that are pretty slim. And I don't, but I don't know if he got nervous or something, but that was just a lie. Like, it was just kind of a lie. Like, players found out pretty quickly once that thing was out that was not a reality.
Yeah, it probably suffered from literally what we just talked about. It's like you don't want to disappoint. You have an opportunity here to like make something great, and you don't want to disappoint everybody you've already told them. And honestly, you don't want to disappoint your sales.
Yeah. It's just that Colbert Show thing was totally when people like grab their pitchforks, and it's a shame because it's like I'm sure you can see in that interview he's clearly nervous. Like he's not a PR guy.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Because
it's like, of course, I would love to have that stuff in those games.
Yeah,
you know
but
you
can't just say like if somebody asks you a question that big, it's like, yo, does your game have this? It feels weird on cable being like, no.
He's a programmer, and he's a programmer who's very excited about what he's done. Yeah, and because it was very smart for the time. We'll get a little bit into something.
It is kind of revolutionary, not to understate that point.
Oh, absolutely. I've never seen a game that loads. Like, it has some issues, but it's got, like, at least on Xbox and...
They did a lot, for sure.
So, this cult-like fandom, like, reached out at parts of the world that you didn't think would fall for it. I found a really good interview, or not an interview, sorry, a podcast. There was part of a podcast that Game Trailers did.
Okay, yeah.
And the guy that voices all the Game Trailers reviews?
Yeah.
I forget his name.
Yeah,
but,
I did too.
He was sitting on the podcast, and some news came out about No Man's Sky, and they're talking about how they can't wait for this game. And he like literally has that moment where he's like, I feel like I'm a crazy person. Like he's sitting there and he's like, they say there's infinite things you can do. You can get in a ship, you can mine stuff, you can like kill animals. That's like 4 things. It's not infinite.
Yeah.
He's like, tell me what the point of this game is. Is there a story? Is there some sort of progression? Or is it just
And that's kind of where I was personally.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You had to explain that to people when you were talking about Minecraft in the past. Like, what is this game about?
The point?
It's about
nothing.
Find the
point, yeah. Though, like, obviously,
but also built so much better for that to take place.
Minecraft is infinitely more of a sandbox despite not having 18 quintillion planets.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is that, like, and the other thing is that people were like, man, you're going to buy the game, right? I'm going to buy the game. I can't wait for us to, like, partner up and play.
Yes,
and
the dialogue
after that first trailer, people are just like, oh, this thing's going to have multiplayer. And they never said a word about it.
No.
They never showed 2 people on screen at once.
Yeah.
People just assumed.
Other than that first E3, and then...
It was implied, but never explicitly said.
They never showed you looking at another character.
Yeah. But they also never said no.
They never said no.
They never said no. Yeah.
Up until after the game came out, they never explicitly said no, and we'll get to that.
We'll get to that, yeah.
Because once it came out, you bought it.
Yeah. Yeah. But, okay, we're going to go through 2 lawsuits that they faced real quick.
This lawsuit's so fucking insane.
This is before it came out, or?
This is before it came out.
This is, this first one, anyway. The second one I didn't know at all.
Yeah. So the first one, a lot of people have heard about. They had a lot of trouble right up until June of 2016, which the game was supposed to come out. We'll get to that. In June of 2016, it got delayed. And a lot of people think that this might be the actual reason it got delayed, this lawsuit, not
You'll find this
additional
funny.
work on the game. But UK telecommunications giant Sky Entertainment attempted to sue No Man's Sky over the use of the word Sky. They had a trademark over the word Sky.
Okay, I'm not even joking. There's some, like, I listened to this guy, Frisco. He's a grime artist, which is like UK rap, fusion, jazz shit. It's really good, but there are songs where he literally in the background is like, there's this like sound bit which comes in and go Sky, like they literally always like say that shit in the background. Like that's how like tied to this fucking entertainment group.
Didn't all right, never mind. I was gonna say I don't know if there's anything around Skyrim because that would have been really stupid. But I feel like
no,
maybe my
there
brain
was.
came. Oh my god, is that real?
No, not Skyrim. But there was Microsoft had introduced a cloud service to compete. To compete with Google Drive and Dropbox called SkyDrive, and they faced a similar lawsuit from this company for using the word "sky" there.
Jeez.
And that just goes to show you how big No Man's Sky had gotten.
That it got their attention.
Skyrim didn't get in any trouble for it, but No Man's Sky did. And the only other person that got in trouble for it was fucking Microsoft.
Exactly.
Like, that's how big No Man's Sky was getting.
No Man's Sky's gonna be bigger than Microsoft.
UK telecommunication.
That Bill Gates money.
Yeah. I hope all those people choke.
No, this is very similar.
Very much to the Scrolls thing.
Yes. Yeah, the Scrolls thing.
The Scrolls thing. Which Bethesda got a lot of shit for, but unfortunately that's how the law works.
Also, in retrospect, I'm glad they sued that horrible piece of crap. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Sky is just doing if you let something like this go by, somebody can later use it in an argument against you to be like, well, they didn't attack this, so they don't really own the word Sky. Yeah. It's how the law works. It's how the legal system works. Yeah. And then, the second one, not necessarily a lawsuit, but this one's a lot more interesting.
This was fascinating, yeah.
They got into an argument with a Dutch mathematician.
Okay.
The procedural generation of this game was put into question. People claimed that there was this super formula made by a Dutch scientist named, and I'm going to butcher this name, Johan Gillis.
I'm just glad you read it before me.
In 2003. And there was a Dutch company named Genecap, who he was the chief officer of research for, and they owned the patent on his super formula. And they were looking into making this super formula into some software program that could be used as in game development or any other kind of development. And it was very similar to the procedural generation that No Man's Sky had used.
Did they ever actually use any of that?
Interesting.
So I'll get to it.
Okay.
Sean Murray had additionally mentioned this super formula in an interview because he was very into math and he knew about it.
Sure.
But that led this company to be like, this looks similar and he knows about our formula. Is he using it?
Did he just incriminate himself?
Because we have a patent on it, and but these people were not like the telecommunications giant, shitting on. They even came out and they said, look, we think No Man's Sky is very impressive looking, and we do not want to stop this game from coming out. We think it's great for this whole thing.
But they're basically like, hey, you have to license this.
But we have to talk to these people, and if we can come to the conclusion that they're using our formula, they're going to have to pay us for it. Mm-hmm. And it never ended in a courtroom. What's interesting is that this thing actually ended at their headquarters. They invited a bunch of programmers from Hello Games in and had basically a meeting of the minds.
That's good. I wish more problems were solved that way.
Obviously he's a programmer. You know what I mean? And if he's into mathematics, how would he get even access to this? He could know about the formula, but if it's patented and protected, how would he have access?
Is that stuff out there?
Maybe he's just smart enough to have come kind of across the same line.
So that's the worry.
That probably happens in mathematics.
Yeah, it
absolutely.
Does. It does.
Calculus was invented by two different people at the same time. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
That was their worry. They're a giant corporation, but they're basically we're going to meet with this guy and we're going to figure out how he did this, and if he did it similarly to us, all we want is a little bit of money, and we want to put our logo on the game.
Right.
And say,
not the end of the world.
Yeah. And they ended up meeting up and having this weird meeting of the minds, and they each described the formula to each other.
Yeah.
And they found out that Sean Murray had come up with a different way of doing it.
Just like the
And they were just all right, well, I hope your game does well. Good job, guys.
That's awesome.
That was no money, no lawsuits, just
good. Yeah.
Just a bunch of math nerds getting together and talking about math.
I assume they're hammered.
The Dutch are trying to make up for all that horrible things they did for the whole of human history until the last 100 years. So, probably what do you mean? Start the slave trade?
Oh. Okay. Sorry, I was thinking a little more modern than you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, I'm still mad about that.
I didn't know how far back you were going.
Also, wooden shoes. Yeah. So
create capitalism.
Our enemy of the podcast,
if
you will.
Yeah. Hot Button's #1 most wanted capitalism. So they were in full-on swing of developing this thing.
But you mentioned this did get delayed a couple times.
Yeah. Like I said, it was announced in 2013. They had E3 2014, they were on the stage. E3 2015, they were on the stage again. They went to this tech festival in 2015.
It was voted most anticipated game several years in a row.
They went on Colbert Report in 2015, or not Colbert Report, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. They went on, the Video Game Awards has a most anticipated game, and No Man's Sky was voted 2014 and 2015 most anticipated game by a landslide. Yeah. Like, they had a good thing going, but nobody knew when this game was coming out until March of 2016, after all this marketing has happened. Finally, Hello Games announced June 21st, 2016 for a release date. The game was announced for PlayStation 4 and PC, obviously no Xbox because Sony was helping market it. Yeah. And it came in both standard and limited edition releases.
The limited one coming with like an art book and themes and some comic or something.
Yeah,
oh, exactly. I thought the limited edition was the regular one.
And Austin's favorite, by the way, a steelbook case.
Woo!
I love me a steelbook case.
I will say
cool
the
box art. Yeah.
The box art for No Man's Sky is.
I just absolutely love. That's one of the funniest things. I'm glad you mentioned that. Like the thumbnail, like how the awful Windows tiles. But like for some reason, like at that whatever you want to call aspect ratio, it looks so good.
Yeah. It's got a neat color palette
pink
too.
And blue.
It's all
neon
looking.
It's incredible.
Yeah, but I just think the balls on them though releasing a limited edition when nobody knew
anything
entirely what it was. I mean, I like me some art books from time to time.
You capitalize on the people.
You're right.
Like I said, like the box art was really cool, and it's like the whole box is the box art. We don't have any of the logos on there.
A lot
no
of
PlayStation thing.
I guess.
It's well, that looks really cool, and it did.
It did.
The art in that game
maybe not,
but even like right prior to Lost in Cracks, we're starting to show a little bit. But pre-ordering.
So in May of 2016, Hello Games then announced that they needed some additional time, and this is where the whole Sky lawsuit thing comes into play.
Right, that's where people
because
thought that happened.
They didn't announce the Sky lawsuit thing until after it was settled. Nobody knew about it while it was happening.
Oh, weird.
And they announced that in June when the game was supposed to be launched, but in May, a month earlier, they said the game is now pushed back to August 9th of 2016, citing that some key moments needed extra polish to bring them up to their standards. In addition to this, Hello Games skipped E3 2016. They were supposed to be on stage to show off the game as it was going to be coming out like the next week.
I didn't know they were supposed to be there.
Yeah. Okay. And they instead decided not to show the game at all because they just needed the team to not work on a presentation. They needed
good excuse. They didn't want to show off their nightmare game that nobody was about to purchase.
The game
went gold.
The game went gold on July 7th, 2016. Which, usually give it a month to print the discs and stuff like that. But the team wasn't done with the game. Yeah. The team was making it go gold. This is in these days, this is standard video game protocol.
I read this and you're like, hey, that day one patch is pretty important. I was like, yeah, it always is, ain't it?
But in this game, it's very important because it comes up.
You're meant to play it online. Yes. Well, connected, rather. So.
But it'll come up in a bit. Actually, right after this, the team continued to work on the game, and they were prepping a day one patch, which they said was very important. The game on disc was not the game they wanted it to be either. They were going to use that additional month to bring it up to standard still. However...
Leaky ships.
Yeah.
Here.
2 weeks before release, a Reddit user was able to purchase an early copy of the game that was illegally obtained somehow through eBay.
Let's see if we can get Chris to guess how much they paid.
Oh yeah, guess how much they paid for this first copy.
$69. $420.
Still not enough.
$166.
Keep going.
Out of funny numbers. Yeah. $911.
Higher than that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Okay, they paid a whopping $1,250.
Yeah.
Is that pounds?
No, it was American dollars.
His pounds would be more, right?
For an early copy. This was the first anybody saw of a leak, but apparently that guy got ripped off because a bunch of other people also started obtaining leaked early copies of the game.
Yeah, man, I got it for $10.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Off the back of that truck, man.
Yep. The thing about early copies of your game leaking is that you can try to plug the hole, but nobody who bought an early copy signed an NDA, so they can post whatever fucking videos they want. So all of these people, a lot of them being, YouTubers and streamers, started posting early video impressions of the game. keep in mind, they are posting early video impressions of a game that is not done yet.
Is this kind of right? I was about to compare this to the Kingdom Hearts 3 thing going on right now with early copies of that getting out for marked up, but like I don't think
it's different because
that's a single player game.
Yeah, the worry with Kingdom Hearts is I don't think anybody's going to be out there and post and be like, "Yo, these systems don't work as well." Right. They're out there posting spoilers of the story, which is the issue.
True.
Yeah, this was.
Yeah, guess what? It sucks.
No, it's just totally incoherent. I mean,
something I missed earlier. They had in their early pitches for the game, they had often said that like, "Oh, you're exploring this universe."
Kingdom Hearts 3 fans. I'm sorry. My fucking credit card's gonna get shut off. Sorry, continue.
So they had said a lot. The people wanted a goal, right? People are more than willing to play games like Rust and Minecraft for thousands of hours without having any explicit goal. But when you're marketing a game, people want to know what the goal is. And so their goal was like, oh, well, you'll keep exploring planets and eventually you'll get enough ship fuel to get to the middle of the galaxy.
Yeah.
And once you reach the center of the galaxy, then you will see something fascinating.
The center of the cube.
Yeah. But
Sean space at the center of the galaxy.
The center of the universe. Yeah.
Sean Murray claimed that this was not something you could complete in 8 hours. This would take somebody playing a very long time.
He never said how long, but it made it sound like this was going to be an ongoing project for years or something.
He made it seem like one of those things where like we would just now be hearing a story about somebody reaching it for the first time in like 2018, like 2 years after.
And it would be enlightening. Yeah.
But like the thing was, these people who got the game early, turns out that they did reach the center of the galaxy in a matter of hours through some glitch.
What did they find behind it, except for a trophy?
The game crashed. So that's...
Oh, man.
I think he was planning for this to take way longer.
Right.
To the point where they were going to patch in something later. Because they didn't think anybody could get there. Somebody found an exploit that made them get to their center really fast. When you get to the center, it just crashes back to the PS4's dashboard.
Your princess is in another universe console.
Yeah, I mean, because truthfully, if you go through that map, you can't even like navigate the map to the center of the galaxy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've sat there for a good 20 minutes straight, holding forward, trying to see if I could get there.
Did you get to the center of the universe?
No.
Okay, yeah.
No, they fixed it now. But the whole thing...
Now it'll take 5 years.
I meant just navigating the map, not physically flying there.
Right.
Like looking at the map.
The whole way they
take a
paced
little while
this,
to get off the first planet.
Yeah, the whole way they paced this was that you have to craft starship fuel.
Yeah.
And you can only craft, and it's very hard to craft starship fuel, and you can only craft enough starship fuel to get to like a galaxy away.
It's supposed to feel
and
pretty
you're supposed to get to
impactful.
you're supposed to get to the center of the universe very slowly through, but somebody found a Pokemon style glitch where if you did something you could just duplicate your starship fuel. So people just filled their inventory with as much starship fuel as they could through this exploit, and
should have
then
been countered for that.
just flew right to the center of the universe. Yep. And people were pretty upset about it, but the company kind of said nothing. Sean Murray came out and tweeted about it. He basically said, and I quote, we've spent years filling No Man's Sky with surprises. You've spent years waiting. Please don't spoil it for yourself. That was his response, which is a good response.
For real. I'll give it to him.
It's again heartfelt.
That's how I would.
Love this dude.
He's still like his heart is still like he hasn't broken yet.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that not only
he shut up a mall 3 days later.
Not only did this early leak happen, but as goes with games that are this highly anticipated, a lot of retailers ended up breaking the street date.
Yep.
Which allowed more people to get their hands on the game.
Including people on the press side.
Yes. It was one of those things where reporters explicitly, I found examples explicitly from Kotaku and Polygon, although I think there were other smaller sites that did the same thing, but they were basically like, we signed an NDA, but like this shit's out there and we need to get clicks.
Yeah.
So they ended up buying copies of this game and a lot of people started streaming playthroughs, posting playthroughs on YouTube.
That's what you do.
Why wouldn't you?
And this broken street date ended up happening about August 5th, 2016.
And this is around when the threat started to...
Right, which is about 4 days before the game was supposed to come out. And I had a lot of trouble finding this. Some people said there was an NDA.
Okay.
And some people said there wasn't. Like, some people hadn't
like
signed
upon booting up the game? Or?
Some people hadn't signed an NDA. The reason the servers were live at this point was because some people had gotten early copies and signed an NDA, and the NDA was supposed to be on launch day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, like, oh, if you put your NDA on launch day, then you don't want early word getting out there because it's going to be disappointing.
Yeah.
Which, again, they didn't say anything about. So all Sony did was just try to take down all of these videos, and they didn't say anything about it. So
and Twitch has policies against like streaming games that aren't out yet.
Yeah. So, people were getting banned and videos were getting taken down, and that kind of just led to more negative press.
Yeah.
Yeah, they drew Hello Games ended up drawing a lot of criticism for not sending out early copies of the game.
Right.
They ended up making the review embargo the day of release, and some people got the game early, some people didn't. So some people were like, "Well, the review embargo is release day, but I have to go buy it, so I can't."
Yeah.
Your infinite vast universe that's
Yeah.
going to take me 20 years to play, I
video
can't
games,
review it in a day.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they also put out like I think I saw that you wrote about how like they were gonna wipe the servers anyway.
Yeah.
So all the planets that people are finding and naming like Weedville
Yes.
and Bonerland and stuff were all gonna get deleted.
yeah,
So
mine was the Gamer Zone presented by Mountain Dew.
was
my
that your
first
planet? Is it still out there?
Yeah.
Chris, you had to come up with some good names for planets.
No, I never named a single planet.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
There's so much room for comedy. I'm almost disappointed.
I know. I apologize. It's true. I did, however, because they auto name the planets when you find them, and
do they really?
and then you can rename them.
Okay,
Yeah,
right,
I renamed
right.
all of them.
Yeah, I found a planet called Anus 1. I'm not even joking. And then there was another.
You sure that wasn't someone else's planet?
Absolutely, because you
man.
can't. The only way, like even nowadays, to find planets that other people have is through the new weird multiplayer thing they've added. But
Yeah.
we can get it all.
Mine was it was the Fun Zone presented by Best Buy, and then I think like the Hunger Zone presented by Doritos. I think I named
Smell Zone presented by.
I think I named the Galaxy Brandland. But yeah, Hello Games responded to the criticism they got for not sending out early review copies by basically saying, there's a day one patch coming. All of these early videos don't include this day one patch.
Yeah.
They were like, this day one patch is going to change things. Don't worry.
That's a video game statement right there.
Yeah, also a no.
So fast forward a couple days, August 9th.
Launch day.
The game actually comes out. This was a big deal. There were a lot of streamers streaming the game all at once. And obviously, their servers were taking a big hit. I mean, I think a company this big cannot possibly
handle
that kind of load.
DICE can't handle it.
Yeah. Fucking EA, Ubisoft can't handle it. Blizzard
Rockstar,
can't handle it. Activision, I don't think a company like this small could handle it. And they couldn't. There was a lot of server side issues. People were rubber banding a lot, and people were, they were mining materials and then getting nothing out of it because the server couldn't fetch the right stuff.
You have to play it online.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was an online only game.
Yeah.
I believe now there's an offline mode.
I believe there is with that.
But
update, 'cause you can. If you're not online, you can
in the
still
beginning, it was online only.
Yeah, at least now you can get one of the resources. I think one of the money. I think there's two different kinds of money resources. You can get one of them from submitting the data you have from finding.
Oh,
shit.
really?
So that involves being attached to the server. Too.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
But yeah, the hype combined with a lot of issues the game led to a lot of people streaming their first playthroughs on Twitch, and these first playthroughs did not present the best picture of this game. Obviously, when you have 18 quintillion planets or whatever, you're going to come across some animals that got some weird butts, or trees that don't quite look like trees, or planets that look weird. It's the same thing with Minecraft, where if you fuck with the generation in Minecraft enough, you'll get floating islands and shit like that.
It's cool.
It's cool.
It's like a ground in the sky upside down and all this weird shit.
But Minecraft is all cubes, so it looks cool. No Man's Sky was not all cubes; it was pieces of things.
Yeah.
So it looked buggy and weird, and you had weird animals, weird bugs, weird planets, crashes.
Yeah, and the reviews are starting to come out too. They seem middling, to say the least. I know Steam wasn't happy, not that they ever are. But,
and not only
65 Days of Static did the soundtrack, guys.
Yeah. Negative reviews from outlets, negative reviews from people, really bad word of mouth. You also had weird problems where that first trailer makes this game look beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that the game looked worse than that trailer, but the problem was when you go from something that is put together for a trailer specifically to something that is procedurally generated, it's not going to look as good.
No.
And people were also pretty particularly bothered by that announcement trailer because not only is it at the time, I don't know if it is anymore, but it was still featured on their and Sony's YouTube channel as well as the store page fronts on both Steam and PSN.
And we will get to that.
Okay,
that is a big point coming up. You mentioned the bullshot stuff earlier.
Yeah.
That will also come up, but first we have a very big problem that they ended up having, which we've mentioned earlier.
The fan.
In addition to all of these bugs and these crashes, people noticed one feature that they thought was going to be in the game was missing, and that was multiplayer. Mm-hmm. Now, Sean Murray had come out on Twitter and basically said, like, there's multiplayers in the game, don't worry. But, again, this excuse. There are so many planets. There are 18 quintillion planets.
I remember I have a very vivid memory of this moment. Like,
it's so bizarre because they're like, it's a feature, but please don't look for it.
Yeah.
He was like, don't waste your time trying to find each other.
You'll never find each other.
Yeah, the idea is the same thing. I remember hearing that. Like, oh, you can search for hours and hours and never come across anybody. Yeah. Like, then what's the point of even having it in the game?
It at all. Exactly,
But again, he said the chances of two players crossing in this giant universe was very slim. Don't think of it as a multiplayer experience. Think of it as a single player experience, which was upsetting enough to people because a lot of people bought this game to play with their friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you need PlayStation Plus to play that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because that would have been a weird thing.
Yeah.
I mean, now obviously with Next you need Gold and Plus, but
some players dedicated a lot of time to this. Basically, people wanted this game to be multiplayer so bad, people started searching it out. Yes. Which led to a lot of problems. And this all came to a head when two Twitch streamers spent their time with the game since it came out to maybe about 2 or 3 days after launch, just searching for the same planet.
I saw this video.
Yeah, and they managed to find the exact same planet. The one of them found it first. He named it. The other one went to it. It was named the thing he named it. They landed on the planet. They went around the entire planet. They came across the same lake, and they stood. They were both streaming, and they stood in the same spot.
Guess what they didn't
looked
find?
at the same lake, and guess what they didn't see? Each other.
Dude, he probably never ever saw that
shit. I can only imagine the look. Like
he was shocked.
Yeah,
dude. I know. Just to like. Dude, this is such a great underestimation of the fans. Like,
this mathematical formula.
This was like a big thing with Destiny when it was just like, there's so much to do, and you're like, you underestimate the amount people play video games.
That's what I said about like people making it to the center. It's like you have to calculate how insane people are.
Yeah,
it's hard, exactly. but so at this point, obviously, like the with that word of mouth that's getting out, like this flipped the hype beast like on its head. Well, as you wrote, like it could complete 180.
There's one more thing. The regular edition of No Man's Sky was just a PlayStation 4 case with the little slip printed in it.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that, and those slips are easy to print. The interesting thing was that the limited edition of the game was in a cardboard box with a steel book inside and an art book.
Yeah.
And this cardboard box was like had all this pretty art on it. And people noticed something very weird. In America, with the ESRB, you don't have to change your rating if you have online features.
Right.
But Peggy, the European one, has more ratings.
So fucking
they have Peggy. They have like Peggy 3, 7, 12, 17, 18.
So is there like a
21.
minimum that you have to have for a game to go online?
If a game has online,
it
has to be rated Peggy 12 because people who are under 12 can't go online apparently. But No Man's Sky qualified for a Peggy 7 rating without the online. People found out that the limited edition of the box in Europe had a Peggy 7 sticker slapped over the Peggy 12 thing. And if you peeled the sticker off, it was the exact same content descriptors, except one was missing, and that was online multiplayer.
That's so bizarre.
Wait, there's 12 on top of 7?
No, 7 on top of 12.
So it was like when they printed that, they were like, yo, this game is multiplayer, and there was no press release to say that wasn't true. Yeah. So then it was like everything was already printed, and they're just like,
Yeah.
That's so weird.
And
like how did that work? It's like digital versions, I guess, read as 7, but like
and like the regular versions, they just reprinted the slip inside because it's easy.
Yeah.
But printing this whole cardboard box and folding it again was like too much work, so they just slapped a sticker over it.
So
why did they just keep it? Because it's like if you qualify for one, you obviously qualify. For the other.
I'm sure that wasn't their decision. That was Peggy's decision to be because at that point they needed the ratings to be consistent. So like if digitally in the other boxes say that it's 7, like you can't have why is the special edition rated 12?
Yeah.
Like
so basically this is the whole downside, like Randy said, the downside of weaponizing fandom is that when you weaponize your fandom against other people and then you disappoint them, the weapon gets turned on you. And this fandom went from a cult into an angry mob.
Rabble.
Very quickly.
Rabble.
People were not happy with No Man's Sky. And this is where I want to emphasize the point that this is no one's fault in particular. I think
this
Hello
is fan
Games,
culture's
like
fault.
Sean Murray, God bless his heart, such a sweet guy. He just wanted people to love his mathematical formula, and it's
a good formula.
He was told how to market it probably by Sony. And he said what he thought people wanted to hear, which was, like Randy said, it's hard to tell your fan base, like, hey, slow down, don't be as excited for my game as you are.
Yeah.
But he should have, because they got this grandiose idea in his head of something that was not nearly as grandiose as they thought.
Fans turn fast.
Yeah. And then Sony took his words and rolled with them and just ran this all into the marketing.
I mean, look how awkward the guy is. Any one of us knows this, like the anxiety would take.
Yeah. If somebody was like, does your game have multiplayer? I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not? Please don't kill me.
Please don't kill me. Yeah.
Don't burn my house down.
Yeah. The fans, and also, I blame mostly on the fans.
Well, I do too, but also when this stuff started coming to light, Sony really threw their hands up. Like Sony was like, "Hey, we just gave them a venue,
and there was a lot of finger pointing. Basically, everybody was super mad at both companies, and Sony was like, we just paid for the marketing, and then Hello Games was like, Sony wanted us to market it like a big game, and it's not. And
I wish they threw them under the bus, and I wish I could find the fucking quote about it, about how they like set them up and then kind of smacked them down.
Sony,
and I'm not sure if you have it.
We don't need that to know that Sony's probably an easy
no, but it was like there was a later interview with someone from Sony where they were just being like, hey, they didn't know how to make the game we thought. It was mean. Like it was generally.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of things like. This, you know who deserves a lot of this blame? Is fucking Jeff Keighley. Aww. Love the guy.
I love him.
He got very excited for this game, and I think he
gave it a stage for.
He fell a little susceptible to the marketing too, because he was obviously a big part in the game getting as popular as it did. So they brought him into the office and like showed him.
And he was like, this is incredible.
Stages.
I need to.
Yeah, and he told everybody how incredible it was. And then later, after the game came out, he was like, well, they showed it to me. And I was like, this game's not going to be what everybody wants it to be. And like, he came out later and said, like, they were not onto something, but I didn't say anything.
I'm sure he had people after him, too. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, okay, I found it.
Nobody wants to get DOSed.
No.
I found it. Eurogamer caught up with Shuhei Yoshida, president of Sony's Worldwide Studios at TGS. And he said this to say, I understand some of the criticism, especially Sean Murray is getting, because he sounded like he was promising more features in the game from day one. It wasn't a great PR strategy because he didn't have a PR person helping him. And in the end, he's an indie developer. But he says their plan is to continue to develop No Man's Sky's features and such.
He didn't have a PR. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was literally your role in this fucking entire endeavor. It's like it was Sony's job to control the response and show that game the way it was meant to be showed. You don't fucking dedicate 45 minutes at your 2-hour E3 presentation to be like, this is going to change games and
then be like, whoa, he promised us something, and we're like, he's a bad PR person. He's a programmer.
Yeah.
You have legions of PR people hired on your company.
And you put
like,
them on stage multiple times,
Yeah.
multiple years. Every year they're designing their E3 docket being like, well, we're going to dedicate this much time to No Man's Sky, and then it's just like...
One more thing. Somebody found a game-breaking bug with the pre-order ship. So if you pre-ordered the game, you got a special ship, but there was a bug with the ship that they didn't test where you would land on a planet and then the ship would disappear, which would leave you stranded on that planet and kind of defeat the whole purpose of No Man's Sky.
Boy.
So that was an issue.
Right,
okay, and then so game came out in August. In September of 2016,
this man's sky, where your ship disappears.
So it didn't take long for the lawsuits.
This was not a lawsuit. This is where we're gonna get into. I think people tried to sue, but we've talked about this a lot. There's not a lot you can do to sue for false advertising in video game marketing because their rules are very weird, and I'll get into that. The UK advertising agency...
It's like suing a movie for like things in the trailer not being in the film.
Exactly. They started investigating claims of false advertising in relation to No Man's Sky's marketing. Now, games do this shit all the time, but No Man's Sky was big enough and disappointing enough. Yeah. They were actually willing to investigate this. These claims stated that the materials in the advertising were not representative of the game experience, and that there were features marketed that were not in the final game, like multiplayer, but... You know, we're talking about screenshots that were early that looked a lot better than the final game did on the Steam page, but
like in the Steam page description, it does say like, "Hey, this is a multiplayer game." Yeah.
Hello Games, this is where we get into the weirdness of it all. Hello Games argued that the procedurally generated game like this is hard to pin down and market because you can't market a feature and then expect every player to come across that feature because there's 18 quintillion planets.
Yeah.
And you're never...
I'm sorry, kind of a bullshit excuse.
Yeah, a little bit.
Is.
Yeah. Technically, like he
technically correct.
Yeah,
the best kind of correct.
Yeah, the best kind of correct. Like at this point, the narrative too is also starting to stretch beyond games again.
Yeah,
like,
And essentially, what came down to was like, well, you can't really say false advertising for a video game when a trailer looks better than the final game because video games change in development.
Happens all the time.
You can't.
There's not a single game that hasn't changed from its development stage.
I want to sue who made Dead Island for that.
The UK advertising agency ruled that the marketing was representative enough of the final experience and chose not to take any action.
Right. Sure.
Which only went to piss off people more.
Yep.
We're now in September of 2016, and the interesting thing is that the internet was essentially, like I said, they were an angry mob. They had their pitchforks and their torches out.
Reddit, an angry mob?
They were standing outside screaming for someone's head.
Yeah.
And Sony came out and said, like, hey, No Man's Sky, like, Sean Murray's a fucking liar. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. And basically, like,
Anyway, you should pre-order Bloodborne.
He was the PR guy. Like, the Hello Games Twitter account is his Twitter account. Because there was, like, four people in that company.
Yeah.
And that Twitter account went dead silent after launch.
Yeah.
People were tweeting it, asking him questions, and saying a lot worse things. And they did not say a damn thing. This made every problem worse.
Gamers do not love being ignored, as it turns out.
People thought they'd been tricked. They wanted answers, and Hello Games had just disappeared, and all communication had stopped.
So no Joe Danger 3.
It wasn't until November of 2015, which August to November, I don't feel like doing math. That's a couple months. When the anger had died down some and people had just stopped playing the game, Hello Games then resurfaced to announce their first update called the Foundation Update, which I'll get to a little later. This is the first that anybody had heard of No Man's Sky in a couple of months, and now the people who enjoyed the game were out and they're like, yeah, we're ready for more content. But it was later stated that the silence was due to the studio's relatively small size. Like I said, they don't have lawyers. They don't have PR people. Yeah. It's a bunch of programmers who like space or whatever. And the negative reception had basically just destroyed all of their lives. Like, there was like 4 guys, and they were just like, I think at this point, Hello Games is a lot bigger. I should stop saying 4 guys, because by the time No Man's Sky came out, they had a lot of help. But the big people...
For the most part,
there were a couple people who were getting all of the blame, mostly Sean Murray.
Yeah. It's easy to lose... I imagine it's easy to lose morale in like that kind of environment.
And they stated like... The negative reception had affected them so harshly, they began receiving death threats, bomb threats. They had to evacuate their offices while they were trying to work on updates. And it's never explicitly stated anywhere, but my theory is that they just decided to let the angry people leave before announcing any further plans to the people who were a little more rational.
Yeah. I mean, they also had a lot of work to do, but totally. Like, you guys were being dicks, so...
Yeah.
I cannot state how much I love this guy, Sean Murray. He is. It's so like like Randy said, it's so heartfelt. I think the reason that the pitch worked so well in the beginning was because you could tell this guy was like not a PR person. He's not feeding you. He's feeding you lies, I guess, but he's not. He believes them himself.
It's not the same thing as a businessman feeding you lies.
He is very excited about what he's doing, and he wants you to be excited with him. And the interviews with him before the game come out, he is just smiling the whole time. He is like, I'm glad so many people are so excited. Let me explain the mathematics. And people are like, no, we're good. And he's like, no, wait, but like, and then like, but then you see him in interviews after. Once this update thing comes out, people start interviewing him. There's a famous thing. There's a famous interview where E3, I believe E3 2017. Jeff Keighley has an E3 show, and he sat Sean Murray down and basically like gave him like that hard interview where he's like, what happened? And like you can see it in his eyes that just like the world has just beaten the optimism out of him. Like the smile is just gone, and he's just tired, and he just doesn't want to be alive anymore. Like it's so sad. But
that's fucked up.
Yeah. But he, they persisted. I think they were victims to the hype, and I think they, partnering with Sony, they wanted the game to come out soon enough that they were like, well, this will be good enough. But like Randy said, they didn't do a early access thing because Sony doesn't do early access.
Have one.
So they instead they just released the game, let people get mad, and then eventually the game as we know it is what they intended the game to be from the start. And I'm going to go through a few of the updates, and then we're going to talk about... You didn't play it, Randy.
I didn't, but I knew that they had their like Final Fantasy 14 Realm Reborn like moment with
That's when me and Chris played it, because I know Chris played it on Xbox, and it didn't come out on Xbox until...
Way later.
Yeah.
Way later. Well, that was when No Man's Sky
it was funny because when
was it this year?
Yes.
It was this year
July.
or last year? Oh, okay. Because I know by the point it came out on Xbox...
this year being 2018. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
when we record this.
By the time it was on Xbox,
a
lot of people are having a way better time, which is reflective of things like the Metacritic user scores and stuff, and official scores and stuff like that. Like there's a huge gap between like when this game was. When it was.
It's no longer No Man's Lie. Now it's No Man's
I'm sure
Sky.
Somebody fucking said that.
There's no way they didn't.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the updates for the game, which kind of set the game back on the right path. Eventually,
this list of things they added is staggering.
Yeah, eventually the game became what people thought it was, which this is probably one of the best turnarounds in video game history, maybe except for like Rainbow Six Siege, I think is...
Oh, Siege is a good example.
But like,
I'd also say The Division, which not
yes.
also had an incredible turnaround.
The foundation for The Division wasn't as broken
not
as this.
But I mean, just like...
I know what you mean.
Just overall game-wise.
So, November 2016, they announced the Foundation update. And that was when they added things like base building, although it was very rudimentary. They added freighters, where you could literally own freighters and bring your materials to them, and they would hold it and transport it to different systems. They added new game modes. They added a survival mode that made the game way harder, where you had to like drink and stuff like that.
Some people want that. Yeah, for sure.
They added I think they added a creative mode, if I'm not mistaken, where it's like
it just unlocks everything for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
It's just like you can go into the game of zero consequence. There's no dying, and you just like shape the thing.
Is there still like the law enforcement that comes after you?
I don't think so. Not creative mode.
No, I don't think so. You just get access to all the base building.
Yeah,
okay, that's cool.
No materials required. You just make whatever base you want.
Right. Yeah.
And then March 2017, the Pathfinder update, which they added a lot more exploration tools and some new vehicles to help you get around planets and stuff like that.
Nice.
Because they had the spaceship, but once people were on the planet, they had to walk everywhere or use their spaceship to fly, and people wanted an easier way to get around. August 2017, they added what is called the Atlas Rises update, which is... actually the biggest one. Yeah. This is when they added multiplayer.
About time. Yeah.
1 year after the game came out. This was their first anniversary. They released this update. Right. Multiplayer came out.
And single player stuff too. Like they added
as well as a story mode
and
expanded lore. Yeah. And then kind of radio silent after that for the better part of a year.
Yeah.
Until... it turns out the reason why they went radio silent was because in July 2018, not only did they announce that No Man's Sky was finally coming to the Xbox One and that they were out of Sony's little, I guess it was probably like a 2-year agreement or whatever.
2 or 3 years thing.
They announced that No Man's Sky Next was coming. and No Man's Sky Next was the big update. This improved the base building. This added frigate fleets, which were seen in the first trailer. This improved missions, added multiplayer missions, and improved pretty much every system in the game.
Yeah, there was like a third person. You could play it in
third person camera. Oh, yeah. They added in like character customization. They added in better generation for plants and animals and planets and and Chris said they rewarded you for discovering stuff and They also announced they were going to work harder to communicate with their audience. They were going to work harder to improve. And since then, since July, this game has received weekly updates.
That's impressive.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And they've had 2 big updates since then. October 2018 was the Abyss update, which finally added like exploring underwater environments. The stuff
featured in that first trailer and stuff,
and November 2018, the Visions update, which introduced a whole bunch more types of environments and plants and animals.
God, what would this have been if it launched like this in this state?
You know what? Honestly, still very middle of the road.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think a lot more people would have been appeased.
I agree. Yeah. I think there would have been less anger. I think it would have kind of just been a game that was like, that was really good.
Yeah.
It was fun, and then faded to obscurity.
It's still not necessarily something I'm looking for.
Its horribleness kind of...
It made that stuff stand out a little
more longevity.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, like, we watched the Game Awards not too long ago, and one of the funniest things about it was how much influence where this game is now has had on new games coming out. Like people are now trying to copy that formula. And it's interesting because it's like the dialogue before this would have been like, yo, here's the game that you originally promised, but fixed, and now it's more of like, hey, did you like that game? You probably did. Right now, you'll probably like this too. Like it's funny that it's like No Man's Sky is at this point in its development is starting to become a genre. Like it's a player unknown situation. Where, it is proven through the people who have come back or have jumped on now that that's something that a lot of people want, even if the execution isn't necessarily,
All right, so we could talk about kind of our experiences with it now. I know you got into it when it came out on Xbox One.
Yeah.
We never really experienced the early days of all the bugs and stuff. Yeah. I always had an interest in I bought Fallout 76. I'm into games that fail miserably. I want to see how they fail.
It's interesting for sure. We played through all of The Quiet Man.
Yeah. I never ended up buying No Man's Sky just because it looked boring, but when No Man's Sky Next came out and they added multiplayer, I was like, okay, I'm into this enough now. And I'm not into survival games or like Minecraft. Yeah. Like, I don't play a lot of Minecraft, but they hooked me a little bit. Like, I played No Man's Sky Next for a good maybe 8 hours without realizing it. Like, I was kind of like...
definitely one of those time sinker games, for sure.
I was kind of like, I'm good.
Sounds like a podcast game if you want it to be.
Yeah. Actually. Yeah, listen to
music or have conversations with people that you're playing with. Just like...
But, like, I enjoyed my time with it, but then, like Chris said, I was like, that was neat. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But the interesting thing is, I have up here, so they don't expose a lot of numbers for PlayStation or Xbox, but you can get numbers for Steam.
Right.
So I found it an interesting thought experiment to kind of go through and list the numbers for this game and where it was at, because it's very interesting. So when the game came out, it averaged about 37,000 players on Steam.
On Steam? That's low.
I think a lot of people played it on PS4. But,
sure. Yeah.
But the peak players at launch was 212,000.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That puts it in perspective.
That was in August of 2016. 1 month later, the numbers are recorded as being 2,000 players average and about 10,000 peak. A month after that, they went down to 2,000 peak players and about
this makes this return feel way more significant.
750,000. Or 750 average players.
Oh, 100. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Then, you could text everybody.
Yeah.
So then
plays No Man's Sky.
We went from that 700 to about 2,000 average and like 8,000 peak when the Foundation update finally came out.
Okay.
And you'll see these numbers crawl back down to about 1,000, and then when they released the next update, it jumped back to 7,000, and then it stayed around the 1,000 mark again until they released the multiplayer.
But then when Atlas Rises came out,
when they released the multiplayer and story update, it jumped back up to 20,000 peak players and about 5,000 average, and then it dipped back down to 1,000 mostly, and then July 2018 hit, and it went from 2,000 peak players to 100,000 peak players.
That's
when No Man's Sky Next came out.
Is Next just a free update on PC and PS4?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It went from 1,000 average players in June of 2018 to 14,000 average players in July, and then 30,000 average players in August.
So it's still going steady.
Yeah. And they've dropped back down now. I think their average play counts are probably about 5,000 now on Steam. But like, they were never going to get back all the people that were super hyped for the game, but they did a decent job of kind of recovering from it.
Yeah.
And people are still excited to hear about updates for this game. A lot of people went back to it and found it to be a much better game.
Well, yeah, like I said, I remember all this happening. And then the only reason I bought it was on sale, and I was bored.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was just bored.
That seems like a good board game. Yeah, that seems like a good game to play.
Fuck it. Like, I've heard, this has got a little
How much did you buy it for
turnaround.
on Xbox? Was it
$30-$40?
Okay.
I remember, and I ended up splitting it with the person I share our Xbox account with.
Yeah.
And I was like, you want to invest in this, $20, whatever.
I'm actually kind of surprised that this game never came out on Gold or like as a free month game or PSN or anything.
Yeah, I think it will. Probably.
I enjoyed it. We had fun playing the multiplayer for a little bit.
I remember you describing it. That's actually sounded like a pretty good
It was
time.
a cool game, and I played it for probably about 20 hours, 30 hours or so.
You got what you paid. Yeah,
I got a lot. I got my money's worth for sure.
Yeah.
I got a lot of good times of just enjoying the landscapes and
Sure,
being like this. It was more about like what I wanted to do. Once I'd reach a goal, I'd be like, all right, I'm bored of this game. Like, oh, I have a new goal.
Right.
And I'd do that. And then just flying around is kind of fun to a certain point. Or being like,
totally.
oh, I want to see if I can fly into a stun.
Yeah.
And then it takes you like 45 minutes and I'm just like reading
I'd
my
see that being a
phone
good
and,
game
like,
to share with people too. Like it's
Yeah.
we had a lot of fun on the multiplayer because I went through a black hole.
Can you attack other players?
Yes, maybe. I don't know. I didn't really.
I don't know if
test
your
it.
party can run into other players' party. Or
Yes.
it's meant to be a
You
cooperative
can, but we
experience.
didn't.
Oh,
I
really?
think it was like the original style. Like the chances of finding somebody
Right.
was still
I ran into someone else.
very.
Did you
slim,
really?
Yeah.
Did they shoot at you or did you shoot at them?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I did run into people, and one of the updates there's like portals that you can go through, and it takes you to like this shared planet where there's like all this.
Oh,
stuff
there's like a
going on.
hub? They added like
It's
a hub?
not like a
kind of?
hub,
Okay.
but it's like it'll take like you to different planets. I didn't follow. It's something to do with the story,
Right,
Where
okay.
everybody's there doing something,
Something else,
and,
but
like,
you actually-
I ran into like probably 8 or 10 people on the planet. It's
They
always
probably
just, like,
created that scenario so you could actually
Oh,
see
yeah,
that,
see
like, hey,
people.
this game is multiplayer.
Well, me and our friend actually were playing it, and like I was like, "Stay here! I'm jumping in this black hole. I need like an anchor in case I get lost." But when you go through one end, you can't go back.
Right.
So I was just stuck somewhere else. Like we had to literally like, glitch the game
That's
with us
actually
to
pretty
get me to
funny.
get back to where I was.
Oh, jeez.
Like it was a fucking nightmare. That's my biggest qualm with this game. Black holes are 3D objects. It was not that in the game. It was just a flat thing that you flew into and it pulled you. It was dumb. Black holes would be spheres. It's not fucking flat things.
I hope you're listening.
But the thing I will
Sean
say
Murray.
too is that the art in that game is beautiful. The aesthetic of it. I
Absolutely.
mean, like
I was going to say that some of the designs of the creatures and stuff never
It's
really
based-
grabbed me.
it's
I like the
based-
color palette. But
Well, the creatures got a lot better. to
oh,
be
sure.
honest.
Because my impression of a lot of the visuals of this game is that early stuff.
I've found very few of the really big ones.
Sure.
that are
it's
really
very
cool, yeah.
colorful. It's
Okay.
based a lot around.
Because a lot of when I
Sort
saw it, a
of-
lot of the creatures looked like they were made in sport.
Yeah,
like
it's based a lot around like a combination of sort of like the whimsy of a Star Wars,
Okay.
combined with like the pulpy sci-fi
It
of
did
like a
seem
2001.
pulpy. Right.
That's
okay.
actually a really, really good.
Yeah,
I like my
take
sci-fi
on
a little
that.
grittier,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
and it's very interesting. But I think it's one of those cases where people wanted it to be this game that it's not, and it ended up being a very good version of one of these type of games,
Right.
a survival game, an exploration
Yeah.
game. But I'm not into those.
enough for people to want to copy.
But it's still,
This is like
made
the
me
most
interested.
classic case of don't buy the hype.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was about to say, what did we learn? But I mean,
I think the industry. I don't think the internet will ever learn anything. But I think the industry.
Absolutely not.
No.
I think the industry learned a lot. You saw a lot, and I don't know if you can attribute this exactly to No Man's Sky, but you saw at the E3 announcements afterwards, you saw a lot of games where they're like, well, we're going to announce a game and then release it in a couple months. Like, we're
Yeah,
not
that
going to let
was
hype
common
build
for a
up
little
that
while.
much anymore.
No.
Which good. I mean,
What
you
about
saw
Fallout
it with.
76?
Well, yeah, but here's the funny thing, though. I mean, at least regardless of quality, Fallout 4 and 76 were both announced months before they came out. And you know, obviously they turned it differently, but it's like I like the idea of like Sony is in a weird place right now because they're like, what if we show you some stuff that looks incredible, but it's like years away.
Yeah.
When I would say like Microsoft stuff is a little more focused. Like they announced that they like, you know, have other companies that they're working with now, but like a lot of the times it's stuff that's kind of on the horizon to make it feel more real.
Yeah.
But you know.
So I had an idea for an outro, but I was doing a little bit of Googling while we were talking, and I found 2 great quotes from Sean Murray himself. I think they're a good place to end on.
Yeah.
Number 1, he says, I remember getting a death threat about the fact that there were butterflies in the original trailer, and you could see them as you walked past. But then there weren't any butterflies in the launch game. I remember thinking to myself, maybe when you're sending a death threat about butterflies in a video game, you might be the bad guy.
I agree.
Yeah,
I very much agree.
Yeah. And then the final quote I'll say.
He called me out like that. Though.
And by the way, this won't play in the audio, but there's a picture of the guy. Look at him. Look how sweet he is.
Yeah, he looks like a nice guy.
Yeah. Look at his checkered plaid shirt and
he could use a hug.
That smile on his face. It says, the internet is really good at knowing when somebody made a mistake.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the best at determining the most appropriate response, but it is really good at knowing when somebody has messed something up. We definitely messed up a whole bunch of communication. I've never liked talking to the press. I didn't enjoy it when I had to do it, and when I did, I was naive and overly excited about my game. Wow. There are a lot of things around launch that I regret and I would do differently.
Man. Yeah, that's so nice. How do you still have that opinion after people say that they threaten your family and your home? Like you find a quote from most game developers who were broken at that point. They just be like, you fucking ass! I don't know what to do. Like,
I'll kill you with a butterfly.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think that's it.
Did we do it?
Yeah.
So maybe next time a game
you're
launch
considering
gets you excited,
sending a death threat about butterflies.
Yeah, maybe don't.
Yeah.
And with that,
be safe, consumers.
You guys wanna plug some Twitters and whatnot?
Some Twitters, yeah.
Yeah. At Butterfly Death Threat. Where you can find me. I'm just kidding. We're at Hot Button Cast across the board. We're on everything.
Consistency.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
We're on all 4 of the social medias.
That's all they are.
Wait, what's the 4th one?
What's
that?
Tumblr? We got banned from Tumblr because of porn.
Yeah, that's true. LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it. I think somebody else already made the joke.
No, if you want us...
We're on Google+, but they're going to shut that down in a couple months. So.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it already was shut down.
No, it shut down in like April 2019, which might be when this podcast comes out.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. That'll work perfectly.
Yeah, I'm Chris I something.
I'm Restart Randy.
And I'm at Austin Blakesley.
Yeah,
remember.
Yeah.
All right.